Yann LeCun has recently left Meta, and the AI industry is in quite a frenzy. Brian, what is your take on all the events surrounding this?
Well, yes. Well, first of all, I think my reaction is, well, it's about time, Jan. Jan LeCun has been an outspoken skeptic of large language models since they made their appearance, and he's never deviated from that, um, even a little bit. We have um, a quote that I love, and I've often brought it up to LLM enthusiasts. He said several years ago, he said something of along the lines that thinking that LLMs are going to be able to scale to artificial general intelligence is like thinking that if you keep breaking altitude records with airplanes, that you're on the way to the moon. Yeah, no, you need a completely different approach. So he has been consistent about that, and yet he has been the chief AI officer at Meta. Well, so he's been out of step um, all along, uh, but that I think really came into focus with Mark Zuckerberg's latest trying to reinvent Meta as an AI company and bringing in hiring at legendarily large salaries and hiring bonuses to the young, brilliant, or people who have the brilliant reputations, but the big names in LLMs to Meta to bet the whole company on it. And so I'm thinking, what's what's Jan doing? Okay, so I was not the least bit surprised. I expected that, especially since he was having to report to, he being quote one of the fathers of machine learning, having to report to some 28-year-old phenomenon. Um, so just from the human standpoint, and I know that Jan is, I don't know him personally. But just over the years following the interchanges between him and LLM skeptic, or machine learning skeptic for that matter, Gary Marcus, that sometimes was quite acrimonious and bitter. So I've never wanted to cross John. But I think what's been really interesting this time is that never has an event in the AI community stirred up our own community at New Sapiens, our followers and investors. I've never been contacted by so many or gotten so many emails sending me that Wall Street Journal article. I must have gotten 10 people sending me that article. And last night, one of our first investors and long-term friends called me up and said, "What about Jan? He's quit Meta and he's going to start a company based on a path to AI based on world models. You know, should we reach out to them? Because our community at New Sapiens knows that a world model is basically a very fundamental thing by which we are achieving AI, that we are endowing machines with knowledge of the world, and that knowledge of the world um, is a world model, which is fundamental to endowing the machines with the ability to understand language and think about the problems in the world in the same sense that humans do, even though machines and humans have a very different underlying architecture, the human brain being based on biological neurons and machines being based on digital circuitry. So, but despite the functional agreement between New Sapiens and Jan about what a world model is, our two approaches to achieving it are 180 out. And what that is this. Jan has always been consistent that the only path to intelligence in a machine is through artificial neural networks. To him, I would say that's axiomatic. Now, an axiom is, or a priority statement is the beginning of the scientific process. You postulate something as being true, and you fit it to the phenomenon, and then you build something and you test it, and then if it works and you got the result you thought, and explain the phenomenon and gave you power over it, then you could say that axiom was valid. Now, so he's being scientific but he's not proven anything. We Our notion to a world model is that it's something you have to build by hand. That is from human beings taking their own knowledge and their collective knowledge and carefully constructing ideas, information structures that are computable and putting them into the computer and tying them all together. That's a very different process. It's a laborious process. Um, but it ties the ideas very directly to their analogs in the human mind without having to know how the brain works. And that's been one of our a priority principles, and it is working. It's working beautifully. We're astounded at how well it's working, and that even today we can have a conversation, with the limited amount of world model knowledge that we've endowed our sapiens with today. Yet still, the conversational flow and underlying processes match how we perceive those kind of same things. We are communicating ideas from the human to the sapiens and from the sapiens to the humans using natural language, where the grammar and syntax and semantics of the words are related back to that underlying world model. So that's how we're doing it. Yann needs to do it through a artificial neural network. And that the way you get artificial neural networks to do things is you train them. You give them patterns and you keep reiterating those patterns again and again until it's optimized to recognize those patterns. So Yann's approach to a world model is going to be based on that. He's always known that in some ways. Well, he's always stood up to the reality that um, he has to build an artificial brain before he can build a world model. And that's why you'll often hear him talk about the intelligence of a cat or a rat. Okay. He's really, what he really means is the information processing in the neural network of a cat brain as being intelligence, but not enough, right? We need more of it. So we need a bigger, better brain. And now from New Sapiens' perspective, we don't really, when we talk about the kind of intelligence that we're trying to create in the machine, artificial intelligence, we're talking about the kind of intelligence that separates humans from cats, that it's fundamentally reached different characteristics and different capabilities. You know, uh, so yes, cats have, complicated brains. So Jan has to go all the way through those things. Now, the way he then thinks he'll train the neural network to create a world model is, again, based on the imitative approach to AI, imitating what you think humans are doing. And his conjecture is that the way humans build up the world model is because they have this sophisticated neural network, and then through the imaging and through the sensory data that comes in through their senses, it trains that model. It trains the brain into creating a world model. And he's not necessarily wrong about that in human beings. But again, we're not trying to create a human being. But from our perspective, we understand that knowledge and world models have a hidden underlying structure. We would speculate that the human brain at birth already has built-in things we call atoms of cognition, but already has a wired predilection to take that data and map it into a world model that's already kind of been predetermined. Again, it's not here to there to what we're doing, because we're not trying to imitate the human brain or thought processes. But from what we find as successful, we speculate that probably human beings are not born with a blank slate. So we don't think he's going to be successful. And to build an artificial brain itself is a usually difficult problem. When you consider that, again, to have the kind of intelligence we're trying to achieve, human neocortex, which is where we think those intellectual functions are located, we diverged from our nearest primate ancestors 4 million years ago. So there's a 4 million year difference of neural and cognitive um, evolution. And that has produced this neural circuitry, which is got built in the hardware and the software together, all, all intermingled layer after layer, evolutionary layer. Uh, I see that as a hopeless task. He might be able to achieve some internal trained structures that would help robotics and things like that be better at recognizing images in a 3D kind of spatial cortex. I could see us collaborating with him on that down the road, where we provide the actual knowledge and the actual model. So we were fundamentally on different tracks. I respect what he's doing. And, it's very, he's in a very different place than, say, some of his co-godfathers of AA, like Jeff Hinton and Jeff Hinton's protege, Ilya Sametsky, who have kind of created this LLM magic trick, but they're like musicians who believe in their own magic. They think it's real, but it's an illusion. And we're finding that out every day in terms of LLMs. So we're just, of course, at New Sapiens waiting for it all to wear off with LLMs. And the what's almost become a pan illusion in our times, that LLMs are intelligent, but they're not. They're just statistical algorithms pushing bits of information around inside a computer like any other algorithm.